Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about this little lens, the Fujifilm 27mm f2.8 pancake lens, which is probably the most sought after Fujifilm lens at the moment. And spoiler alert, I can understand why. For your information, all the photos and footage from this particular video will have been taken using this Fujifilm 27mm lens. Obviously not this particular bit, but all the photo examples and the video footage, all the talking head stuff will have been taken with this lens is the plan. And for reference as well, which I think you can see on here if I put that there, I use a 1/8 Black Pro mist filter in pretty much all of my photography and on all my lenses. So why did I buy this lens? Well, I bought this lens to accompany this camera in particular, the Fujifilm X-T32. It was meant to be a lightweight, small lens to kind of make up this compact setup for traveling as an everyday carry and as a backup to my X-T4. The idea was that it wouldn't compromise on size or quality. And to this effect, I've been pleasantly surprised. There is a lot of good about this lens. The obvious one is the size. You can't really get away from it. It's one of the main reasons it was bought. On either camera, it's a joy to use. It's a dream to carry around, and you forget that it is there. In particular on my X-T32, it's such a lightweight combination that you can carry it around wherever you go. You never have to worry about the weight or the size or the space it takes up. Want to take a second lens with you? You can. The 27mm doesn't really count. It doesn't weigh enough for me to notice. And so yeah, it's a bit of a cheat for having a second lens or just carrying a lens at all really. It is a sharp lens. There's no doubt about it. Fujifilm lenses are typically sharp. Prime lenses are sharp. This isn't an exception to that rule. At 2.8, it can be a bit soft, I suppose, especially in the center and up close. It's not really a problem for me. I don't typically shoot at 2.8 and shoot up close. The fact that most of my work happens kind of between f4 and f8, this lens doesn't really need to be sharp at 2.8, which it is. And beyond that, it's fairly razor sharp. As I mentioned before as well, I also use a Pro Mist filter to deliberately soften. I use a 1/8 Pro Mist filter to deliberately soften these images. As you can see, they're plenty sharp. A great thing about this lens, and one that I try to look out for in lenses, is weather sealing or weather resistance. This wasn't on the original copy. This is the version 2, which does have weather sealing, and it just gives peace of mind. I typically don't shoot in sterile environments. It can be raining, sandy, dusty, on a beach, anything like that, and I'm more than likely to be happy shooting in it. So having weather sealing on this lens is a very big plus. And Fujifilm's build quality is generally excellent. This lens is no exception to that rule either. It's really well built, so no complaints from that side of things either. For some people, f2.8 is a slow prime lens. For me, and I think 95% of people in the world, this is more than fast enough for pretty much 95% of use cases out there. I think we get hung up at shooting at 1.4, 1.2 a lot of the time, and to be honest, if you think f2.8 isn't fast enough with you, you're probably wrong and probably relying on that for your photography too much. There's obviously occasions where having more light coming into the camera is great. From that perspective, as opposed to a compositional reason, having a faster lens is important. But for me, I try to shoot mostly during the day, mostly during sunny hours or where there are decent sources of light. f2.8 is perfectly fast for 95% of my shooting. So yeah, for me 2.8 in such a small lens for an aperture is great. I'm really happy with it and it's a big plus. There are some things which aren't great about this lens. In particular, the autofocus. For video in particular, is sometimes not amazing. For photography, this lens has no issues whatsoever. I haven't missed anything because the autofocus on the lens, it's been user error. It won't let you down if you're doing photography. If you're doing sports, this probably isn't the lens you're using anyway. Street photography, everyday photography, the autofocus is more than okay. For video, it can hunt a bit, and that can be frustrating sometimes. And that is only for someone who shoots video. This lens can be a bit frustrating in that sense. The autofocus is quite noisy on this lens, the little motors in there. So I'm gonna see if I can get this to pick it up. One sec.
Sorry, it was very erratic.
It's okay. I hope you could hear the motors there, and that is one of the few compromises, in fairness, of this lens being so small, is the autofocus motors. The motors in there aren't amazing. They're a bit hunty, they're a bit jerky, not as smooth as I'd like, and a bit loud and noisy. But for photo, I haven't had any issues with it. And to kind of counteract the hunting issue, I've been setting the autofocus on moving subjects and with the autofocus, and then just switching it to manual focus, and especially for static shots, that works perfectly. So that's a good workaround. The other thing that isn't as amazing about this lens that I've noticed is the flaring. Wide open, shooting towards the sun, or with backlit subjects, you can find sometimes they get very washed out. There's a lot of ghosting, a big loss of contrast, and that can be a bit annoying at times. I like to shoot into the sun, so stopping down is a big help towards that, kind of keeping the sun out of your frame and being aware of it. You might like the look and lean into it, and there's definitely times where I have. Sometimes the flaring can be quite aesthetic and nice and pleasing to me, but some people might find it an unpleasant part of this lens. Honestly, I had a good few reservations about looking into picking up this lens, 27mm. A healthy distrust of internet hype, I think, is probably a good thing, and it led me to question whether something really this small, this compact, also this hyped up by the internet would actually be worth it. And yeah, so far, I've been pleasantly surprised with how well this lens has performed. Particularly pairing it with my X-T32 as an everyday photo camera, it's excelled. I've taken it on a number of trips now with my X-T4. It's done really well, and I'm really pleased with it. I think for the money and for the weight saving, the size saving, and actually I really do enjoy the 27mm focal length. Funnily enough, my favorite focal lengths typically are 50 and 35mm, so the full frame equivalent, that is. So having something in between that is really nice, and it is nice, gets a nice bit of compression but not being too wide. For everyday use, it's been really, really good. So far, it really suits my setup, this lens, and my photographic vision. Will I keep it long term? I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure yet. For now, it's staying on my camera, and I think as long as I have the X-T32, I'll likely keep it, because together they are such a nice compact setup. I'd love to hear from you, actually, in particular with the video side of things, if you've had the same sort of experiences, and with the lens flaring issues I've had with this lens. If you've experienced anything like that, let me know down below in the comments. Hope you've enjoyed the photos and the video. It's been somewhat useful. Thank you so much for watching as always. It's really appreciated. Please feel free to like, subscribe and share the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Have a lovely day.